Greetings, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron Mcintyre. Thank you for joining us here today. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve at stevedeace.com. That's D-E-A-C-E. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. You can also follow me without any big tech censorship or fake checkers like Facebook has, where they attempt to fact check me and claim I am giving you false information with something that I never actually claimed or never actually said in the post that they actually rendered as false. All right, so if you just want to get around all of that stuff, just evacuate and head over to MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter to get our social media content there instead. We would love it if a critical mass of you migrated to those platforms so we could just leave Facebook with the letter F and walk out for good. All right. You can also get clips of the show that are free of censorship and free to watch at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. That's rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. If you like my glasses, you can get a pair just like this, or maybe even nicer ones with our friends over at Go Spec Lenses. If you've heard of these German-engineered rodent stock eyewear frames, first time available here in the U.S., that's what I am wearing right now. And they are available for even problematic prescriptions, because you know I have one of those. I'm a little bit far and a little bit near. So if you've got a simple or problematic prescription, you too can now get access to some of the best eyewear in the world. German-engineered rodent stock eyewear attached to your prescription with our friends at betterspectacles.com/Steve. That's where to go. That's where to go for these Go Spec lenses. They'll give you 61% off to get you started, plus free handcrafted rodent stock frames today. Just need to talk to one of their fantastic opticians online to get you started when you go to betterspectacles.com/Steve. Again, betterspectacles.com/Steve. All right, coming up on today's show, we will, of course, play our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold. The weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, he is loaded for bear today. And so we will talk to him in the final segment of the program. We'll get to Aaron's montage here in just a moment. Before we do, though, I want to give a very important announcement. If you are not yet a BlazeTV subscriber, today is the day that you need to get off the fence. We have a 3-hour special. 2 hours from Glenn and then an hour from yours truly. That's going to be unlike anything that is aired on any major American media platform, easy for me to say. Unlike anything that is aired on any major I still can't say it, any major American media platform since the beginning of this scandemic. The amount of truth bombs that will be dropped for the next few hours here tonight, exclusively to BlazeTV subscribers. Why are we putting it on BlazeTV? Because a lot of this would get censored. I just told you, Facebook is trying to censor me for saying something I didn't actually say, nor claim in the post they are attempting to censor. Big Tech doesn't want the information that we are going to be sharing with you into your hands. They don't want you to see it. That's why the best way to get it right now, to make sure you're there. I've read the script in the rundown of what's coming on Glenn's 2 hours to kick us off tonight. And I'm telling you right now, nothing like this has been done from the beginning. This is the best connecting of dots, the most thorough research. It basically is the sequel to Fauci and Bargan, our book. And it picks up where Fauci and Bargan left off and connects dots that frankly weren't even on the horizon when this book came out 8 months ago. You do not want to miss this. And I think that we are uniquely ready for this truth now. A lot of you in this audience were ready for this about a year ago. But a lot of Americans thought that the mask would save them, the lockdowns would save them, that the jab would save them. And now we have endless jabs and no way of knowing when boosters will end. Guys, it was just less than 2 months ago the FDA voted 16-2 against boosters. And now you might just be getting boosters for EVs. We don't even know. That's how fast these lies spread. Europe, several European countries going back into lockdown. And that's when they're not just locking down the unvaccinated. Masks are returning. Even if you want to go see a Broadway show in New York and get jabbed, you still have to wear the mask. All these idols now, I think more and more people realize they have failed us. Sweden is poised to have tougher restrictions for public access this year with vaccines than it had at any point last year without them. And it will still be one of the more lenient countries in the European Union. I think people are ready for the truth that Glenn is about and his team is about to drop on them tonight. So blazetv.com/Deace. Get a discounted subscription right now to Blaze TV. You get a free trial period. All right. So if you subscribe today and you watch what we have going down tonight and you're like, there's no way this is worth $10 a month, then by golly, cancel. And just watch it for free on us and eject. But I'm pretty confident it's going to be worth a lot more than that. It might be worth, I don't know, our very way of life, because that is what is at stake right now. Yes, something cosmic may be playing out. We've always talked about that here for the last few months. And if that's the case, then these events are going to unfold regardless of what we do or do not do in spite of them. But is that within our purview to know or to ascertain or to manipulate? No. That's a jurisdiction above, way and well above our pay grades. It could also simply be a historic, pivotal moment where the future of Western civilization is at stake. Now, is that something within our purview, within our jurisdictional authority to do something about?
If not ours, who?
Indeed, yes. And so you do not want to miss this tonight. And then afterwards, myself, Daniel Horowitz, and Dr. Ryan Cole will host a special Q&A to try to get answers to all the questions that big tech doesn't even want you to ask, let alone get the answers to. All right, so this few hours tonight is some of the most important that's been done anywhere, maybe the most important that's been done anywhere since the beginning of this. You do not want to miss it. Please, blazetv.com/Deace is where you can go. Get a discounted subscription today, take advantage of the free trial, and then at the end, you're like, hey man, this was full of sound and fury signifying nothing. Eject, cancel, don't charge you a dime. But I think you're going to find that it's worth a heck of a lot more than the $10 a month we typically ask for. blazetv.com/Deace. And now, here is Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by No Verdict Yet. The jury in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse retired yesterday evening after a day of deliberation. What appeared to be an open and shut case requires, as the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh put it, 12 jurors intelligent enough to see through the DA's propaganda and courageous enough to face the wrath of the mob. I'm afraid those odds might be insurmountable. Yesterday, that mob formed outside the Kenosha, Wisconsin courthouse where the trial is going down. As a reminder, the jury is not sequestered, who is in its second day of deliberation right now. In other news, House Republicans have obtained whistleblower documents that show the FBI is using its counterterrorism division to investigate and add quote-unquote threat tags to parents of school children upset about what their kids are being taught in school. The documents show the FBI started using these so-called threat tags after that infamous memorandum from Attorney General Merrick Garland, which asked the FBI to start investigating parents of school children. That memo was spurred, of course, as you know, by the letter from the National School Boards Association to the White House, which called parents domestic terrorists. That letter, we learned recently, was sent to the White House at the request, direction, and guidance of the Biden administration itself. Just last month, Merrick Garland testified in front of the Senate and had this to say.
Like you, I can't imagine any circumstance in which the Patriot Act would be used in the circumstances of parents complaining about their children, nor can I imagine a circumstance where they would be labeled as domestic terrorism.
Joe Biden, your thoughts?
And as some, you know, I think the same goes. I don't want to get into it in detail because you're going to be freezing, but my plan to build back better for our people.
Also in Washington, senators grilled Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over what's going on at the border.
Has Joe Biden been down to see this facility? Yes or no?
The president has not been down to the...
Okay, no. Has Kamala Harris been down to see the Biden cages, this facility? Yes or no?
The vice president was at the border.
Has she been down to see this facility? I know she went to El Paso. Has she seen the Biden cages?
They are not cages. And
what are these walls?
Moving on, Germany is joining Austria in implementing a lockdown only for the unvaccinated. Before long, German citizens who have not taken the jab will not be allowed in public spaces. Meanwhile, in Australia,
life will be miserable without being vaccinated. You won't be able to get any. You won't be able to hide. You won't be able to get a doctor to sign off. It's going to be very hard to maintain your employment if you're not vaccinated. You won't be able to go anywhere for any entertainment. So get vaccinated. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very lonely life, and you're not going to be able to maintain your employment.
Back home, author and former co-host of The View, Jedediah Bila, went back to The View and was asked to explain why she's not vaccinated.
I have a medical exemption to the vaccine that's been written by my infectious disease vaccinated specialist in New York City that's been co-signed by 3 other doctors. I'm not a candidate for this vaccine. I also have sky-high, multi-tiered, multifaceted natural immunity, very, very high, that has also been proven, it has been shown, and it is substantiated by letters from these doctors. So for me, personally, this vaccine poses a greater risk than a benefit. I'm also not a risk to any of you. I know there's been a lot of debate about that, but I have these doctors who've gone on record with that as well. So vaccinated people. I'm not opposed to the vaccine, but I am opposed to the mandate 100% on the grounds of science.
People have died from COVID, including Manny's in-laws. And we've been friends a long time, but Manny's parents, I just don't understand why you would choose to prioritize your personal freedom over health and safety of others. And I just really don't think that we should allow this kind of misinformation on our website. We've had the United States Surgeon General debunk.
Yes, I heard what he said.
Everything that you've just said, and I just don't think we should allow this kind of misinformation on our air.
Other odds and ends, a high school football player in New Hampshire is suing Exeter High School after he was suspended for a game for saying off school grounds that there are only 2 genders. The freshman and his mother filed the suit earlier this month saying his First Amendment rights were violated. In Virginia, this professor at Old Dominion University is straight up advocating for pedophilia and pederasty.
I use the term minor attracted person, or MAP, in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors.
Last night, however, Old Dominion announced they have placed the professor on administrative leave effective immediately. NPR tweeted, then deleted this: Michelle Wu, an Asian American, is the first woman and first person of color to lead Boston. While many are hailing it as a turning point, others see it as more of a disappointment that 3 black candidates couldn't even come close. And finally, there's a show on Netflix called You. Apparently, Laura Ingraham of Fox News doesn't know that, and when she had a guest on to talk about woke messages and pop culture, things got a little interesting.
You know, I was watching an episode of You where measles came up.
Wait. When did I mention measles?
I don't know. It was on You.
Wait, what was on me? What are you talking about? Is Raymond even hearing what I'm saying? I never had the measles.
Was on You.
We never did a measles and vaccine episode. Is this a joke?
I know.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It was on You. It was on You.
Raymond, I've never had measles. What are you talking about? This is stupid.
It was an episode of a show, Laura.
What's it called?
You.
What is he talking about?
It's called You.
I've never done a show on measles. I just completely give up. We got to get
It's a show
I give up.
called You on Netflix.
There's a show called Laura Ingraham on Netflix. What are you talking
Never mind.
about?
I'm moving on to Adele. I can't explain this to you.
And that's what happened while we were away.
I'm convinced that's a spoof.
Yeah.
That's not legit.
The more I watch it, the funnier it gets, but the more I think that it's a spoof.
And frankly,
Pretty
it's
brilliant.
impressive they kept a straight face doing that live the entire time, if indeed I'm right about that. Aaron's Montage brought to you by friends over at Scoremaster. If you want to take advantage of record low interest rates That's a good thing, but make sure you know your specific credit situation before you do. Don't get shocked and blindsided by the big banks and the creditors out there that know your information better than you do. Find out exactly why you have the score you have, and then if you want to bump it up, how to get to the score you want. They make it all transparent and available by putting the power of your credit information in your hands where it belongs when you go to scoremaster.com/Steve. Qualify for the lowest loan rates, see your points, get more points on your score when you go to scoremaster.com/Steve. Again, that's scoremaster.com/Steve. You know, often you can raise your score by about 60 points in 3 weeks or less when you go to scoremaster.com/Steve. So let's get to the rest of Aaron's montage now while we're at it. On the Rittenhouse jury, I'm of two minds on what is happening here, because I think I said yesterday that if this takes very long, that's a bad sign. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty open and shut case of self-defense. And they deliberated on this for 8 hours yesterday before the judge finally sent them home. Now I've seen Jack Posobiec, who's kind of, if you don't know who that is, he's kind of a investigative muckraker on the right. Is that fair to say? Okay. He used to be with that One American News Network. I don't know if he still is, or even if that's still around. I don't know. Tucker Carlson, I think, alluded to this last night too. There is now a train of thought out there that the jurors don't want to render a verdict because they're afraid of getting doxxed, backlash, assaulted, etc. by, as Tucker Carlson put it last night, Joe Biden's voters. Late last night, the Rittenhouse defense filed a motion for a mistrial with prejudice. For those of you that don't know what that means, if a judge declares a mistrial with prejudice, then the prosecution is forbidden from ever bringing these charges against this individual again. With prejudice means that you acted in a form of malfeasance or incompetence to the level that you should be punitively punished from ever, and forbidden from ever, burdening the defendant with these claims ever again. And the claim is based on the prosecution withheld drone footage that was exculpatory in nature for Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, the judge just said a little bit ago that he has not fully reviewed the defense's motion yet because he was waiting to see what the state's response to it was. Apparently, the attorneys were called back into court without Rittenhouse because the jurors had questions. One of the questions the jurors had was, what was the judge going to do on this mistrial motion? I don't think you've got to be, Steve Deace reading the tea leaves, a news cycle before everybody else to kind of do some math here, right? I think if you're a sentient life form and don't belong to a cult, I think that these jurors are running the clock out here and hoping that a judge who has already pimp-slapped the prosecution on multiple occasions on camera for their behavior during this case, that I think they're hoping here that Doug Flutie just threw the ball from the 50-yard line. Am I wrong? And they're kind of hoping that Judge Gerard Phelan standing down there in the end zone that catches it here, and everybody just go home. Don't bother rendering a verdict or finding out just how good your home security system is. Am I wrong that is potentially what's occurring right now?
Oh, I don't think you're wrong, but boy, what a broken arrow our entire justice system has become.
There's no question about that.
If that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, well, yes. Yes is the answer. Yes.
I mean,
Aaron, go ahead, Todd.
I'm just saying, if it's as obvious, even without the new footage, we've seen a lot of footage by now, and it's pretty obvious the man's innocent, right?
Yeah, I mean, this thing we've had, and just speaking for me personally, I've had very little opinion on this going on a year, actually longer than a year. Why? Because I just don't know, okay? And I'm not in a hurry to make statements about things that I can't verify. Now that we've had a trial and everybody has presented what they think is their best case and evidence. Oh, I've got lots of things to say about it now. And it's pretty obvious to me, this is an obvious open and shut case of self-defense.
But if you're
open and shut case of it.
If your fellow man in the form of a jury of your peers, which is what our entire legal system is ultimately the bedrock, it's at least in part founded upon. If you have no interest in defending the truth anymore, and you want the ruse, you want the scam for whatever reason, you talked about it yesterday, safety versus freedom, Steve.
Yep.
This will be ultimate for him individually. Go free, but it will be a Pyrrhic victory for all of us, because we will just have proven once again we want the easy way out all the time.
Yeah, that's why I included that tweet from Matt Walsh over at the Daily Wire. This is an open shut case, but it rests on finding 12 random people who are not given over to the propaganda and who have no fear of the mob. We couldn't find 12 random people, just 12 random people off the street. At least one of them is in fear of the mob. That's not a good sign. This is not even a Pyrrhic victory, Todd. That's a loss. An acquittal was going to be a win. This is a loss. Mistrial with prejudice is a loss, guys, because that means the flippin' mob won.
There's a part of me, I agree with that analysis, but there is a part of me, if you are, his peers, these are residents of Kenosha, Wisconsin. You watched your government fail you last year, do nothing to protect you or your property from this, right?
Yeah.
And that was with Trump in the White House and rattling sabers about, sending the National Guard and the military into all of these places. Now you have the puppet of the spirit of the age that commands these thuggish forces empowered. I can't completely, if there's an opportunity out there to have, because if they did withhold exculpatory evidence, it absolutely is grounds for a mistrial with prejudice. Without question it is. If that was me and I'm on that jury and that's my neighborhood and those are my kids and my families that are going to, that when the Blaze and MSNBC and Fox and CNN stop caring about what goes on in Kenosha, Wisconsin a week from now, we're the ones digging out from the fallout of this, right? We're the ones walking out of the hospitals with bandages or maybe burying a loved one, right? Can I sit here and judge them too harshly to say if there's an opportunity for the justice system to step in when the motion has been filed? The motion has been filed, okay? It's not like the jurors went to the judge and said, hey, we read something in the newspapers. Is this options for him? There was a motion filed here. Am I wrong that I can't blame them too harshly for saying, hey, if there's another way for justice to be done here that doesn't put us and our neighborhoods on the hook? Because Lord knows the government, our law enforcement's not defending us, and we'll be the ones on trial next year.
I agree. I'm like this, just like I have with Kyle, as I said. Go innocent, absolutely. If you can find a way in your own life to avoid the bullets in this specific case, also agree. But broadly speaking, we just have a problem with being addicted to not being bothered and not ultimately realizing that entire American experiment is about defending truth.
In defense of these people, though, they've been bothered a lot more than just about anybody else in their position has been. I mean, their place was on, their home was on fire last year. Mm-hmm. They have been bothered. You know what I'm saying? They have been. But I agree. I mean, that's why I told you the other day. This isn't about race. That's the cover story. This trial is about those of you who do not buy into the spirit of the age. You will not be permitted to defend yourself. That you will be defenseless against their thugocracy, whether they call it Antifa or BLM, or frankly, the guys in uniforms with badges carrying out just following orders. Whatever iteration it takes, whatever manifestation it owns, you will not be permitted the right to defend yourself, your loved ones, your way of life, or your property. That's what this is about, to make an example out of this case, to discourage future people that maybe aren't, teenagers or young people maybe acting impetuously in order to defend, their old man's hometown, that it might maybe next time be, I don't know, a retired Navy SEAL who knows what he's doing, and hell no, you're not doing this on my land. You know what I'm saying? That's what they want to make an example out of him for.
True. Do we really think it's less likely that city burns again over a mistrial versus them declaring an innocent verdict?
Well, then that's a separate conversation. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll be as pronounced as it was a year ago, because a lot of that was frankly just done because of the election. Okay, and the whole that's why Trump should have sent in the National Guard. And he looked ridiculous saying, if you elect Joe Biden, this is what America will look like, when it was going on when he was there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It was designed to put him in a Kobayashi Maru, a no-win scenario, that he looks weak if he doesn't do anything, and then he looks like the authoritarian if he does. The problem is that all the people that believed he was an authoritarian were never voting for him no matter what he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, he was better off projecting strength to the people that at least contemplated they might think about it, because he might be an alternative to this. I understand they put him in a corner in a no-win scenario. Guys, that's the job, all right? It's like the clip in the last Mission Impossible movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Alec Baldwin, ironically enough, says to what's-her-face, well, if Tom Cruise and his crew had done their job, they'd all died. And it was Angela Bassett. And she's like, I know. That's the job. President of the United States, and it says right under there, first line of the job description, master of Kobayashi Maru scenarios. That is the job. It is not art of the deal. It is literally the most difficult management job in the world. There is no way to win. There is no way to win without any form of collateral damage. That is the job.
That logic may also apply to the jury as well.
Yeah. I realized as I was getting to the end of it that I kind of just defined the position that the jury found themselves in too. I want to let you guys also know that within the hour, OSHA has announced it is going to comply with the pimp slap that it received from the Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. When was that? On Friday afternoon, I think it came. That just pronounced this thing as ridiculous in putting an indefinite injunction against implementing the Biden regime's immoral, unethical, and unconstitutional vaccine mandate. So OSHA has announced it will comply with that edict, and it is suspending the implementation and enforcement of that mandate. So if your employer is still attempting to tell you they must go through with this, first of all, they didn't to begin with, because you never have to do when what is wrong. You don't ever have to do that, okay? But they didn't have to begin with. But now they really don't, okay? Now they really don't. Don't buy into that. You guys are going to ask me about healthcare workers and others. That's a whole separate jurisdiction. OSHA is handling the private labor workforce, okay? So that doesn't count healthcare workers or the government workers. So this is strictly what was going through private industry via OSHA. They announced that in response to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals injunction against the mandate, they will suspend the both enforcement and deployment of that mandate. Thoughts? Got about a minute.
Again, I just have so little trust in this anybody learning their lesson. So when's the next shoe going to drop is my initial thought.
So you've been paying attention here for about the last, 10 minutes, let alone 21 months or so?
Been trying.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll come back. Play our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold here when we come back on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Stay tuned. We've been telling you about Rough Greens for quite a while on the show. It is the supplement that you mix into your pet's food that our dog Cap absolutely loves. And with that one simple act, you have likely restored the bulk of vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and other good-for-you things that were stripped out of your pet's food before it ever left the factory for the same reason they do it with the people food. because it's for mass distribution and long shelf life. And that's why we use so many supplements today as people. And now there's one for your pet, but you might worry, hey, what if my dog doesn't like it? Or what if I don't see a difference in a couple of days? Well, it takes more than a couple of days probably to see a positive difference on just about anything. But that's why we want to give you what's called the 14-day Jumpstart bag for free. You pay for the shipping, but the bag is on us to see if you don't see a difference in your pet in 2 weeks or less. And if you do, hang around. If you don't, move on. All it costs you was some money out of your pocket for shipping. We give you the bag for free when you go to roughgreens.com, RUFF, for roughgreens.com, or you can call them at 833-ROUGH-DOG. Again, that's 833-ROUGH-DOG. Let's get to buy, sell, or hold. This is one of our favorite segments each week. Aaron, with a little help from his friends, actually a lot of help from his friends, you in the audience, you give us a series of predictions and prophecies and lists. No topic is off limits. Todd, you and I decide, we're going to buy that. We like it. Or we're going to sell that. That's terrible. Once per episode, we are permitted a hold. But if we use it for any reason, like how dare Aaron even allow that to get on the air, you have to follow Lindsey Graham into the men's room.
Nope.
Better yet, you got to let him follow you, brother. Know what I'm saying?
Nope.
Okay. Aaron, go ahead.
You ready? All right. We'll begin with Aaron. Please put me in the buy, sell, hold segment, who says, buy, sell, hold. If Rittenhouse is convicted, a group of armed people will try and break him out of prison.
Sell. Sell.
Yeah. You got both of us pausing long enough, so that's a win on your end.
Well, my pause was mainly what would happen if that went down. And I think what would happen is a motion to file an immediate repeal, and what form of sentencing, remanding would go on with this judge. I was kind of doing that math in my head mentally of what would happen if he was found guilty. Okay. I don't believe he'll be found guilty. I could absolutely see a hung jury. I could see the judge declare a mistrial with prejudice over this motion, and I could see an acquittal. I don't believe he'll be found guilty.
Yeah, so, but he's not quite a big enough fish then, but the net is being cast for all of us sooner or later, and it is going to come in very short order to something you're talking about. Because at some point, people are going to snap. And they're simply not going to take it anymore. And the civil war that truly does exist right now will manifest that way on a regular basis in actions like the one you're talking about. So theoretically speaking, that was a question that I'm very, very glad you asked. I think that just specifically, I'm in agreement with Steve. I don't think it will happen in this particular case.
When you permit lawlessness,
yes,
you create scenarios like this, okay? And, I mean, this is why I was Keith Olbermann or somebody, Rachel Maddow's worst person in the world years ago when I was a local host. It was after the baby killer, George Tiller, was murdered. What did I just say happened to George Tiller? That he was what? What word did I use?
Murdered.
Murdered. You looked at me like you don't remember what I said 10 seconds ago.
Well, I wanted to make sure I was right.
Okay. But did I not just say George Tiller was murdered?
Yes.
In the clip they played of me, what did I say that George Tiller was? Did I say he was avenged?
No.
No, he was murdered. Is murder affirmed by our code here?
No.
No, one of the commandments is not to commit what?
Murder.
Murder. So murder is bad, right? So George Tiller was murdered. But I pointed out that this, as sad as that is, it's just as sad that there are now going to be babies that will be permitted to be alive today in Kansas that would not have been if he was still, if that act had not occurred.
True.
And so the reality is, when you permit someone for as long as government did to just, and Tiller was, by the way, a late term abortionist, like Gosnell kind of macabre stuff. One of the worst ever. When you permit that to go on for as long as you do, and the law never steps in or never says it's bad, you are sowing the seeds for stuff like this. Okay? And so This is what happened with the Bundy Ranch. And I remember when Buck Sexton worked here at the Blaze and he had me on to talk about it. And I like Buck, by the way, so I don't have to run to him and tell on me. But I mean, him and I got into an argument about it on his show. And I understood Buck's argument at the time. His argument was, I don't know that, that we want to cast our lots with the Bundys as the place where we take our last stand on property rights. Similar to, I didn't really want to, cast my lot with Alex Jones a couple of years ago on censorship and free speech either, right? But then ultimately, here's what the lesson I learned with the Alex Jones situation, and I should have listened to the advice I gave Buck about the Bundys years before that. If you don't, those rights exist whether we find you comforting or not, whether we find you affirming or not. Those rights exist in spite of those things. They're not conditional. That's why we have them, because it can get really subjective really fast on who we're comfortable with and who we're not, who's deserving and who is not, right? Okay? And you are sowing the seeds for this kind of lawlessness in response to lawlessness. Lawlessness begets lawlessness. In those days, Israel had no king, so everyone did what was wise and right in their own eyes. Lawlessness begets lawlessness. This is why I am so adamant about this window we have right now to confront these things. And when I use, is the word confront polite? Is it a nice word? Like, you've ever thought to yourself, your mom told you, I will be confronting you about doing this wrong. And you thought, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think it'll be quite constructive. Does the word confront ever come to give you a warm fuzzy when someone uses it against you?
No.
No. So therefore, when I say peaceably confront, am I talking about being candy asses?
No.
No. But I am talking about using peaceable means of confrontation. Because if we do not, eventually, we are going to get lured into the Mcintyre Nebula here, as I continue with the Star Trek references, because that's the spirit of the age wants. Total lawlessness, zero-sum game, and let's just go ahead and take this thing America down with it, and we don't really care what the collateral damage is. That's my concern. That's what I believe the end game is here for the spirit of the age. The spirit of the age is not immoral. The enemy is amoral. He is an agent of chaos. Whatever will cause the most carnage to that which is true and beautiful, he's for. Period. End of sentence. Because that's what causes, that's what most grieves the heart of God. So he doesn't care. He doesn't care if it is a righteous shootout at the OK Corral. You know what he just wants? A shootout at the OK Corral. That's what he wants. Tag him and bag him. That's what we're being lured into. And I get the impulse to think that way. Trust me, I've got to stifle that instinct within me constantly. I grew up having to fight in my own home. I had to fight bullies in schools. It is not instinctive for me to find a third path of civil disobedience. That is not my instinct. But are my instincts basically good?
No.
No, they're not. We're being lured into a trap here. And we don't have to go right there. If you can still email me about these things and send in your buy, sell, or hold propositions, does that mean we've reached the zero-sum game?
No.
No. Okay? And so I want us to take advantage of the means we have to thwart this. We don't have to dance in that black hole, because that's a path to nowhere.
Next up, we'll go to the Mallard Reborn. Regardless of the outcome, red states will begin drafting Kyle's laws that specifically protect people who use lethal defensive force against mobs and rioters, while blue states will start criminalizing it.
I could totally buy this. Yeah, could totally buy it. Might not be called that, but de facto, I could absolutely see it.
Yeah, but it's more just yapping away about things you're not really willing to put any true spine behind. So yeah, of course that's going to happen. You know, we don't need those extra words to defend the Second Amendment, but we'll do it thinking we're doing something, and it won't ultimately help us when we really need it.
And now for something completely different, Caleb Hamer says there will be more than 3.5 Big Ten football head coaching changes by next season. More than 3.5.
Oh, by next season?
Seems
like before
like
the 2022 season
Yep.
kicks off?
Seems like a
I think
lot.
there's a better chance there won't be any than there will be more than 3.5. Who would they be?
Yeah.
Because Frost is going, they've already announced Frost will be back. I don't buy the whole they're waiting on the president for Mel Tucker's extension at Michigan State. That's BS, man. He's waiting to see if he's going to get offered the LSU job. Okay. So that's to me the most likely departure. I don't see anybody getting fired. I thought if Michigan had a bounce back season, there was a realistic shot Harbaugh might go ahead and cut his losses and go back to the NFL. I'm told, though, he actually is just having too much fun, and this is a really young team. So I don't see that happening either. I don't see it, man. Unless, even if like a Ryan Day shocks us and goes off to the NFL, I don't see that happening either. Frankly, I don't think it'd be a good career move. He might have the best job in college football right now. Even if that were to occur, we don't get to 4 because that's what the over is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd hammer that under with confidence.
Me too.
Now, if you told me by the end of next season, a lot of things then therefore could play out with another full season, right? But by next season, no way. No way. There's a better chance there won't be any this offseason than there will be 4.
Agreed.
Next, Darren Ray says, unvaccinated men and women will be highly sought-after commodity for dating and marriage due to eventually finding out that those jabbed have been genetically altered in a really bad way.
That I'm going to sell because I just don't want that to be true. Flat out. That's some dystopia level stuff, man. Okay? That is some dystopian level stuff. You're basically talking about unvaccinated sperm and ovaries are contraband. Basically, I don't want to believe. I'm willing to go to some pretty dark places, guys. Heck, I'm willing to entertain we're living in the end times. But that's not a dystopia. That's the culmination. That isn't that what we all want as believers ultimately, right? Is for the Lord to return, correct? This is a darkness, Soylent Green level of dystopia I don't even want to contemplate. So I'm just going to sell because of that.
I'm going to buy because there's enough there. Even if we don't know all the long-term physical effects, this absolutely is going to affect pair bonding going forward as it affects just, heck, you can't even get together and meet a new person over coffee. Everybody's vetting each other. Do you hate Trump? Do you support this? So yeah, whether people stand on this or not, is it going to affect if you get a second date or not, or even a first? Absolutely it is.
Yeah, but he's talking not from an apartheid standpoint, but like medically. Medically, no. We're going to affirm that this is required. Can you actually, even if it were to be true, can you imagine this medical establishment in the West would ever actually say, yeah, I mean, don't mate with the vaccinated, even if it turned out to be true?
After what I've seen with my own eyes in the last 2 years.
Okay. All right.
The medical establishment.
I can totally buy that.
Yeah, because they've been.
You believe the medical would say don't mate with the vaccinated?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That they're not that in
don't mate with the unvaccinated.
No, with the vaccinated. Isn't that what the question is here?
I'm sorry.
That's the question. His question is from the other premise. His question is from the premise that they have so altered their genetics that we're going to seek to mate with only the unvaccinated. That's why I'm asking. You really think the medical establishment is going to admit that these products are that kind of garbage if it actually devolved to that point? I don't believe that.
Well, not in our. That's a long ways away, but if it ultimately goes to the place that is being presented in here, yeah, I'm open to it.
Next up, we go to Mini Bomber. More politicians will retire and not seek re-election in 2022 than any previous election cycle.
There was a lot in 2014, but we're coming off of redistricting though too. Actually, I got to think about that. So when you throw the fact in we're going into redistricting at the same time here, yeah, I think it could at least get close enough to be entertained. So I will buy that. Yeah. I could see it. That's a smart take, I think. Even if you don't hit the mark, I think it's a smart take.
I'll sell. I think the impetus is that they're going to retire because of how crazy things are. But remember, these people they love controlling people's lives. You get to control them more than ever before. So I'm going to sell.
Next, we go to Jason Smith. No benchmark policy issue has been memory hold faster in modern times than healthcare is a right.
Oh, I don't know. I've seen a lot of healthcare policies memory hold, and quite a bit here. Like the right to try, the right to get a second opinion, informed consent. Informed consent and the right to a second opinion are hallmarks that have been around far, far longer than the 1990s birth talking point. Healthcare is a right, okay? So I'm going to sell on that. I think far deeper truths of healthcare have been memory hold than that one.
I'll buy only because Obamacare, it became so embedded into the DNA of even Republicans that everybody thought that Republicans, if they got all the entire White House and the Capitol, that they'd overturn it. That obviously didn't happen. Judge Roberts, as Steve pointed out yesterday, actually basically rewrote legislation to make sure it survived. So yeah, for now, I mean, it's up there. It's in the conversation, sure.
Before we get out of here, reminder, Built Bar is still delicious. Don't miss out. Had my chocolate chip cookie dough, which is #1, all by itself. All right, it's like Georgia football this year. It is #1, all by itself in my Built Bar flavor power ratings. Of course, I'm a little biased. I'm a guy that thinks cookie dough should be a food group, okay? But the #2 rated, all right, the #2 rated flavor is back out and available, coconut brownie chunk. It is absolutely phenomenal. If you like chocolate-covered marshmallow stuff, their puffs are great too. Loaded with flavor, not loaded with calories, not loaded with carbs, not loaded with sugars, also loaded with protein. The greatest protein bar of all time, better than most candy bars out there. Go to Built.com, BUILT, use my last name Deace as your promo code, and get 15% off when you go to Built.com, promo code Deace for 15% off. Hour 2 is next. Back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. Let us know what you think about what we think. Via the stevedeace.com inbox, you can email the show, steve@stevedeace.com, to let us know there. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. Pardon me. You can also follow me on MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter if you don't like censorship, and you shouldn't. Look at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show if you want to look at clips that are free of censorship and also free to watch. And then if you're not a looker, you're just a listener via the podcast. Thank you. We appreciate all of you. You are a big part of this audience. If you haven't had the time yet, please today leave us a 5-star review and hit the subscribe and or follow button. And the more of you that do that, the more it helps the podcast to continue to grow. And thank you to all of you that have done those things already. I mentioned earlier that the OSHA mandate, or the Biden mandate, has been temporarily halted by OSHA. They announced today in response to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals pimp slapping the regime on Friday that they will honor that injunction and will not be either deploying or enforcing it while that case is being adjudicated. There's other cases in federal courts as well. And frankly, the more of these we can get, if we can get multiple circuit courts to render verdicts similar, not just the right way, but in the way that the Fifth Circuit did, where they just essentially lampooned this thing. Here's why that's important. Two people are going to really decide this, I believe. And their names are Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. And I wouldn't trust either one of them based on what we've seen so far since they've been on the bench. You want them on the shakiest ground possible and not trust that they will simply just uphold the rule of law here. Because so far in their first year on the bench, they have rarely done that. Kavanaugh and Barrett have both voted an overwhelming majority of the time with the Democrat bloc on the bench. So the more courts that we can get, particularly at the circuit court, because that's the final step before the Supreme Court, the more of these courts we can get to pimp slap this, the better. That's why look at our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. They're in the fight here against this wicked Biden vaccine mandate, maybe the worst assault on individual bodily autonomy since we ended slavery in America. That's how bad this is. If you want to defeat it, All right. They are fighting it on multiple fronts right now. You can make a tax-deductible donation to Alliance Defending Freedom, as I did, at adflegal.org/Steve. Again, adflegal.org/Steve. The more pimp slaps we can get of this, the weaker we can make it before it gets to the desks of Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett to be worked over by John Roberts, since they clearly don't think for themselves. So we want to weaken this thing as much as we possibly can before it heads to SCOTUS at adflegal.org/Steve. All right, let's get back to part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold.
We'll go next to Shulva 8-1189, who says Mahomes taking the team to the Super Bowl this season would be his second confirmed miracle after already breaking the Madden curse, thus projecting him to canonization as St. Patrick.
I'm going to hold on the ground. This is a pathetic choice, and it's frankly just here because it's Aaron McIntyre's fetish. There's no justification for it. There's no point to it. There's no meaningful discussion offered here. It's just this is just how he just has a man crush on this guy, and so I'm going to hold on those grounds. I don't care how many damn times Lindsey Graham has to follow me into the bathroom.
Here's the reality of what the meltdown that you just heard, folks. Steve hates being reminded that Patrick Mahomes broke his curse when he predicted that Patrick Mahomes was actually not going to break the Madden curse. That's why Steve is so upset right now.
Actually, Steve's very happy with Patrick Mahomes because Steve won a 12-1 bet for the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl because they kicked his ass in that game last year. So there we go.
Yeah, that's a really mature, well-founded statement. I don't know. I just put, this is a good way of seeing what the people want to talk about, and this keeps on coming up every single week.
It's all yours. That was funny.
Sal, it just won't be a miracle. That's all. Yeah. But I expect them to be. I mean, he's Patrick Mahomes, and they're the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Steve won't melt down. I don't know.
These are like Robert Mapplethorpe photos for Aaron.
Have I ever once slurped Patrick Mahomes in front of you? Verbally.
We're previous popes before this one Catholic.
Verbally in front of you.
Previous popes before this one Catholic.
Have I ever done that?
Because I'm more Catholic, I think, than this pope. Is that a fair statement?
Kevin McCarthy, name one time that I did that, Kevin.
Oh, gosh.
Name one time, Kevin.
You literally just said that we have this sort of an offering every week.
No, you just said that.
No, you said that.
No, you said that. I said people bring this to people bring this to me. When was one time? Answer the question. One time I verbally slurped.
People bring this to me. I like to find out what people are thinking, and people bring this to me every week.
How is that my fault?
You're the one that just said
How is that my fault?
You're the victim. You have no control over what gets inserted in here whatsoever.
No. How is it my fault that people are interested in this? Yeah, Steve doesn't have an answer. Moving on.
How does it get from their Twitter accounts to my screen?
I don't know. I just think I still think there are rotten apples in your stomach about the fact that Patrick Mahomes broke the Madden curse, and you can't even with that. Nick Isley says, top 5 events before 2030. Number 5, federalized banks.
I mean, I could see it. In many respects, you have federalized banks now. It's like healthcare. You go to the bank, you still think you're doing business with said bank. But a lot of the various, not to the extent of as healthcare because they're specifically dictating policy, but they're still dictating quite a bit to those banks. So it's really not as big of a step as I think people think. So I could buy that, yeah.
Also buy it based on the woman that Biden just appointed.
Good point. Aaron had that clip the other day.
Personal accounts anymore. So yeah, buy.
Number 4, U.S. dollar will no longer be the world's reserve currency.
I could also buy that. I think I can't sit here and claim, because it's what I actually believe, that the end of Western civilization as we know it is on the table. And then therefore, if that were to occur, what would be the symptoms of that occurrence? It'd be the stuff we're talking about right here, like number 4 there. So I would buy that. Yeah.
As would I.
Number 3, rentals will be the only property easily obtained. You will own nothing and love it.
This I will sell because it's similar to what the Chinese figured out about how much love, how much adoration of technological advancement is inherent to the joy and culture of their particular people. And part of their pride, that a lot of this comes from our region of the world. We're the ones that make this stuff, right? And so they figured out, hey, okay, cool. Here's a new screen. Similarly, private property or the notion of it, because most of us don't own our homes now. Banks do with mortgages, right? Private property or the notion of it is inherent to the sense of purpose and feeling of living in America. You take that away and you don't want to put people so much in a corner that they feel like they have no choice now but to fight back. And remember what we thought was the answer. What the statists actually want to do is let everybody own a home, whether they can afford it or not, whether they can qualify for a loan or not. So this one I will sell, because I think this is one of the things they dangle in front of you in order to get you to comply. Hey, we're not a communist. You own your own home. You have your own property. Of course, we'll tell you what the interest rate is, who you pay, and what it's worth, and what you can do with that property anytime we want. But yeah, you own it. Sure. Wink, wink.
Bye-bye.
Number 2, metaverse will be the norm for school, business, etc. Have you guys seen that metaverse commercial with the animals and the weird people like dancing?
No. Is this the new Facebook thing?
Yeah, I've seen this thing at least, I'm not joking, 100. It's the creepiest thing ever.
Essentially, he's arguing that an implementation of a social credit system, right? That's essentially what the point of number 2 is.
I'm not really sure. The metaverse is the Facebook thing.
Yeah, but that it essentially will be.
I guess
it'll be the framework for education, how we do business, some form of a social credit system. Yeah, absolutely. If Western civilization falls, you bet. Yeah.
Bye.
Next, Tyler Morgan. I'm sorry, the last one there was actually Steve gets invited to speak at CPAC. Before 2030.
Oh, no.
So
it's never happening, guys.
Yeah. Tyler Morgan says, Spider-Man No Way Home will undoubtedly be the best Spider-Man movie to date.
I'll sell just the undoubtedly part. I mean,
I
the
think
other
I'm with
two,
you on the undoubtedly part, yeah.
The other two were great.
Yeah, I agree.
So this could just be okay. I'm not expecting that, but I mean, we just had an Eternals and Shang-Chi review, so if those people got their hands on it, who knows?
Now, you bring up, maybe unintentionally, you actually bolster that argument, though. So Eternals is good and is the lowest rated Marvel movie ever. Shang-Chi was very highly rated, very successful. But I could certainly see on the heels of the Eternals that it makes this movie look even better. You know what I'm saying? That people are like, because Black Widow disappointed a lot of people too. So I could see it maybe because expectations now are different now. We've been reminded that apparently not everything Marvel, not everything Kevin Feige glitters is gold, right? That being said, though, undoubtedly, that's a level of certainty I'm not willing to apply. It is a different animal mixing in the amount of characters they are attempting to do with this film. And it ain't the Russos that did it with the Avengers. Mm-hmm. So I'll sell. Although my expectations are high, but not high enough to say undoubtedly. There's a lot of things I undoubtedly thought I'd never talk about, never see. And unfortunately, I have been seeing and talking about them a lot recently.
Next up, Tom Deerling says, if Kyle Rittenhouse is found guilty, then the next Kyle Rittenhouse won't bother turning himself into the police or show any form of restraint. We kind of already talked about this.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah.
Next, Joe Heim says, Barrett is on pace, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, is on pace to be the Ryan Leaf of Supreme Court members.
What a metaphor. Yep. Wow.
That's 2 weeks in a row, this guy.
For those of you that don't know the name Ryan Leaf anymore, Ryan Leaf came out of college at the same time as Peyton Manning. And they were both Heisman Trophy finalists, losing to C. Wood at the University of Michigan. led Washington State to like its first Rose Bowl, since, covered wagons, basically. And was considered the athletic version of Peyton Manning. He was he had Peyton Manning's skill set, but in the Incredible Hulk's body. I mean, we just didn't have quarterbacks back then that were 6'5" and 250 pounds and ran, 4.6 40s. We produce a couple of these now, but this was unseen in 1997 when he came out of college. And it was a big debate about who should be the number one pick, him or Peyton Manning. The Colts went with Manning. The Chargers picked next and took Ryan Leaf. And it just seemed like a can't miss with both of these guys. Unfortunately, Ryan Leaf had a lot of personal issues and problems, maturity issues, and his career just never, ever recovered from them. And he's considered to be, by some, at least on a short list of the greatest NFL draft busts of all time. I'm going to sell just because I think I still want to see what happens here with the vaccine and with the row challenges. But I will say that my sell is probably more based off of hope than data, because there certainly is, we're in our first training camp here with ACB, right, as our quarterback. It certainly does look a lot more Ryan Leaf than Peyton Manning, does it not? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So there are certainly some Ryan Leaf tendencies there, man. That's a depressing but effective metaphor.
I will buy because of the amount of hope that was placed in her at the beginning. The fact that she worked for Scalia. The fact that she had such an undeniably successful approval process relative to others before her. It would be such a slap in the face to the people that had supported her getting there. So this is just beyond her. She's more than just a random judge who happened to have outstanding conservative credentials. It's like Batman and the bat signal. She was a symbol of potential resurrection. So yeah, I agree.
By the way, breaking news out of the Rittenhouse case, still no verdict, but the judge is actually going to show the footage to the jury that the defense made its motion for the mistrial over. He's going to show the jury that footage that the prosecution withheld from the defense, which would seem to affirm the defense's motion, right? I mean, their motion is that we want this video footage shown. It was not shown. It wasn't provided to us during discovery. The prosecution had this the entire time. He's going to show this footage to the jury. I don't know how that doesn't on some level bolster their case that this is worthy of a mistrial with prejudice, but that's breaking news just in the last 5 minutes.
I agree, and I'm way outside of my purview in terms, but couldn't this ultimately also lend credence? A judge has a lot of power, but how unlimited are his powers that he can now just, after it's already been given to the jury, come back and enter new evidence? I mean, this sounds crazy.
It depends, because it doesn't typically happen. I mean, you're not supposed to have these are moments, in Law and Order, on TV shows and movies. This is not how the actual process works itself out.
Forget Kyle Rittenhouse and what you think about him.
That's why there's a motion to dismiss or mistrial, because you're not allowed to withhold evidence and then or try to drop last minute bombs. That's not how this process works.
Right. Think about this in reverse. So we think this helps ultimately, but if it was the opposite, I'd be a little pissed off if I was on the other side of things.
I would think there's. I mean, I don't know how often a prosecutor withholds video, and then the judge, when he finds out about it, lets a jury that's already in deliberations come back into court and watch it. Why that wouldn't be some grounds for some unethical ethics complaint or disbarment complaint against the prosecution in this case, that I don't know either. Whew. That's just flat out slimy and shady is what it is. Yeah.
Buy, sell, or hold. Ryan Leaf would be a better Supreme Court justice than Amy Coney Barrett to this point.
He's pretty lefty, actually, from what I've read. So I'm going to sell.
So,
because I think he's more Sonia Sotomayor.
Ryan Leaf?
Yeah, from what I've heard. Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard he's reformed his life on some level.
Which is
so,
good.
yeah.
I'm not, it's nothing personal.
I know nothing about him other than that.
Yeah.
Next up, we go to Aaron McIntyre didn't kill himself, who says Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud finishes...
That's the real name. Yeah. Yes, I like it. Yeah.
Finishes out his career at Michigan after losing his spot to millionaire Quinn Ewers next season. Harbaugh still continues to lose.
Also.
Is that Quinn Ewers? Did he commit to Ohio State?
He's enrolled there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually talk Ewers is transferring.
Gosh, I'm so dumb.
That he's going to transfer back home into Texas. There's actually a lot of talk with that, so I'll sell. And Michigan already has a 5-star quarterback on the roster, and they might have the number one quarterback not named Arch Manning 5 minutes from campus that I think they're going to sign too, so I'll sell.
Who is guiding that young man?
The people who said Texas law would not allow you to cash in on that NIL. Cash in, go to Ohio State, take the money. Now you got the transfer portal. You get instantly eligible. Then you can come back home and play next year at the local school you want, and you cashed the check. You weren't going to play quarterback as a true freshman anyway. So go cash the check. One-time transfer rule. You can play Texas, Texas A&M, anywhere you want next year.
This is one extreme of NIL. The other extreme is that walk-on backup fullback.
That's a great story.
From Kansas, who's now doing Applebee's commercials.
Yeah, because he mentioned I mentioned afterwards how much he loves Applebee's. Yeah. Right? They asked him, "Hey, what are you going to do?" So there's a walk-on for Kansas. Never played an offensive snap. Catches the 2-point conversion that pulls off the biggest point spread upset in the history of the Big 12. And afterwards, of course, he's a darling, and he talks about, "Hey, we're probably going to go to Applebee's and celebrate." He got an endorsement deal from Applebee's. That's going to help pay for his education, man, because he's a walk-on paying for that thing out of pocket.
When the quarterback is such a poster boy for Americana, we cannot expect to create a nation of Quinn Ewers and expect anything we regularly fight for on this show to ultimately come to fruition. If that is the definition of scheming manhood, it's pathetic. And this is going to become the joke I promised you it would be.
I'm all for the NIL, by the way.
Next up, the president has no pants, says Steve sigh after finding out Todd and Aaron haven't seen his top 10 movies of the year so far is the same as a mom saying she's not mad, she's just disappointed.
I'm not disappointed they didn't see the top 10.
You're
They didn't
just
see
mad.
any of them. Didn't see any of them. I'm a little disappointed at that.
I saw one.
Did you see one?
Yeah.
Which one did you see?
Justice League.
Oh, that's right. You did. Yeah. Okay. But I love that analogy too, so I'll buy. Yeah, I like it.
I watched the Marvel movies again this year. Jim Bicknell says Mount Rushmore of Chevy Chase films.
Now look at Todd now sits up straight. Okay, now it got real.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Christmas Vacation.
Bye.
That deserves to be in the top 4.
How's that not like number 1?
Well, these are in no particular order.
Okay.
Particular order.
Okay. But absolute buy. You bet. Yes.
Fletch.
Bye.
I mean, 6'5", 6'9" with afro, man. Everything's ball bearings these days. Sorry, pardon me. My car hit a water buffalo. Can I borrow your towel? I mean, that is one of the most quotable movies of my childhood, brother.
Chevy Chase in his prime is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Three Amigos.
Yes. You didn't even get it out. Todd was already there. But
can I have your watch when you are dead?
Yes, but I agree on the Three Amigos. I agree.
I don't even know what this one is. So
this one, I've never even heard of this movie.
Somewhere Under the Rainbow.
I don't even know what that is.
I've got it like Spies Like Us.
That's another very under him and Dan Aykroyd.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good call too. But how about just the actual movie Vacation? How about the original?
No, yeah.
But I don't even know what Somewhere Under the Rainbow is. I don't even know what that is.
Buy, sell, or hold. I've seen more than 0.5 of these movies.
You've seen Christmas Vacation.
I've seen Christmas Vacation.
Right, so buy. Yeah.
Next, we'll go to Dacian Memes for Unvaccinated Fiends, who says,
names. Goodness gracious.
Since you can back up your Bitcoin in 7 different pieces in 7 different vaults, Bitcoins are essentially a monetary Horcrux.
The analogies today are, as my kids like to say, on fleek. These analogies, man, are lit, as my kids also like to say. So, by the way, did you see that HBO Max is doing a 20-year anniversary special of Harry Potter? And the woman who's the mastermind of the entire saga, J.K. Rowling, will not be invited because she believes there's only 2 genders?
Yep.
I mean, get out of here. although the Horcruxes weren't those were actually used by Voldemort. So they're typically used by dark magic in the Potter universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't Bitcoin consider itself to be kind of the currency against the dark magic currencies of the fiat of the world.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know that the analogy quite lands, but I think it's a valiant attempt, so I'll buy.
I still don't understand, so I'll buy.
We'll move on. John Hensley says 4 common sense NFL rule changes. Number 1, we'll take these one at a time.
Okay.
Defensive pass interference, 10 yards, replay down.
Oh, sell. Absolutely should be a spot foul. Should be in college too. Absolute sell.
Yeah, I'm not passionate about it, so I will sell. I could go either way.
There should not be a 10-yard penalty when a guy beats you for a 50-yard gain and you trip him up, when it would have been a touchdown. The spot foul is what should exist in college football too, so I'll sell.
Number 2, defensive holding, illegal contact, 10 yards, replay down.
As opposed to the 5 yards we have now? That's kind of what it was when we were kids, okay? And then the 10 yards would get extended if you were Lester Hayes to 2015 or Jack Tatum, 30 yards. But I like it. Yeah, anything that makes the game more violent, without being totally dangerous, I tend to be for.
Okay.
Number 3, move goalposts back 5 yards.
That would just look, you can't logistically. I mean, the way the stadiums are constructed and everything else, that can't happen. So sell.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is even.
Yeah, I don't either.
Viewed as
that just seems dumb.
Yeah.
Number 4, replace onside kick with one play needing 20 yards for a first down from the 25-yard line.
Now, I like this idea, and this has been proposed in college football too because of the concern of injury. And because right now what you've done with the onside kick to try to negate injury is you've taken it away. I mean, you can't load up one side of the field anymore like you could before. So if you're going to do that, then let's just play a football play. I like that idea, so I'll buy.
Okay, but none of these were get rid of instant replay, so it's a deficient list.
Chris Goebel says, this is all headed, meaning Western civilization, I think, is all headed towards some ridiculous combination of The Stand, I Am Legend, The Hunger Games, and Mars Attacks.
Buy.
I think it could be buy. It could be all headed to a Left Behind book, too. I think that's we could be watching cosmic things take place at the exact same time. But yeah, I think those are possibilities. You bet. Before we get to the last couple of these, let me tell you, though, if you are looking for an opportunity to take principled political action, I mentioned a little while ago on the show, we got to use whatever peaceable means we have. One of the peaceable means we have is what's called an Article 5 Convention of States. Our founding fathers gave it to us for such a time as this, when should the system be so far gone that the people required their own version of a political Hail Mary pass in order to rein it back in to protect their God-given rights and their constitutional freedoms. If you want to learn more about the Convention of States, or you want to go on offense and support it, as I do, as Congressman Chip Roy does, Governor Ron DeSantis, Senator Rand Paul, our very own Daniel Horowitz, Mark Levin, and others, go to conventionofstates.com/Steve today. Sign the petition to demand that your state legislators vote yes to a convention of states. Again, that's conventionofstates.com/Steve. Once more, conventionofstates.com/Steve.
Next, tar and feathers may be necessary. It was yesterday's show or Monday's show where you were hedging against eating locusts. Pumpkin spice locusts.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Sure, I'll try it.
I'll try it. Yeah.
Electric Raptor says, following this loss to Kansas, the Texas Longhorns will never again win a conference title or college football championship.
Never is a long time. Yeah. On the other hand, it could actually just be the next few years of the way Western civilization is trending. And given the league they're going into, what I think is going down here is some cosmic stuff. That school's program has systematically and unilaterally tried to wreck college football with its own demands. It's the reason we had the last round of realignment roulette. It's the reason we had the current round again. Programs like Nebraska and others have been irreparably damaged because of what Texas has attempted to pull, all for a program that's averaged barely 7 wins for the last decade. And I think what you're watching right now, man, is what is it? Jim Rome used to call it sports karma. Has come forward and said, you know what, we've just had enough of y'all, all right? And they are being punished severely and very publicly and justifiably. So, yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, and Texas, Austin itself, I mean, you'd almost start to wonder if this was a plan to ultimately destroy the Texas football program by the powers that be at Texas and take that cancer as far into as many other programs as possible. And I wouldn't be surprised if Texas is just not like mediocre, but utterly dreadful for the rest of our lifetime, Steve, by design.
Now, they have one hell of a basketball coach now, but football-wise, I never understood the Sarkisian thing, and I told you guys this last year. All right, Tom Herman, he had beaten Oklahoma twice. He'd been to the Big 12 championship game. He had won a major bowl game. He was only 3 years in. Last year, he finished 8-3 in a COVID year and ranked. And now they've had 11 players transfer out. You got players leaking footage from bus rides to the media. I mean, it's just a mess. I never understood hey, Steve Sarkisian figured out when he had Devonta Smith, when Ohio State puts a linebacker on him, throw him the ball. That's his giant offensive ingenuity. I mean, I don't know what he did at USC and what he did at Washington that merited this sort of a move. So, if it's possible to be Texas and still overinflate your worth, they have figured it out. If you're looking for something special, original to give this Christmas, might I suggest what I have lined up to give to my own mama? So I can't give it a better recommendation than, hey, this is what I'm getting for my own moms, all right? It's called Paint Your Life. And what they do is they've got world-class artists, and they'll take a photo, could be something recent. In my case, I used something from way back when I was a little kid, maybe the oldest picture I have with me and my mom when I was little and she was just a teenager. And they preserve it for you in stunning clarity and quality in a world-class painting. I mean, this is a great way to preserve those old photos that age and warp with time. I just can't believe how good it looks. It just blew me away how good it is. So if you want to do this, it takes about 3 weeks to get this hand painted portrait done. Quick and easy process for something that's meaningful, personal, that can be cherished forever. Again, the perfect, special, unique Christmas gift. And if you want to take advantage of their offer right now, 20% off plus free shipping. Well, first of all, if you want to see samples, just go to paintyourlife.com. All right, you'll see samples of what it looks like there at paintyourlife.com. If you want to take advantage of it, though, on my recommendation and get 20% off plus free shipping, text my name, Steve, to 64,000. That's it. Text STEVE to 64000, 64,000, and they'll give you 20% off and free shipping for your order when you text my name, Steve, to 64,000. Trust me, it's going to blow you away how gorgeous. They do a phenomenal job with these. All right, let's bring in the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, the one and only Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Hey, sorry, I was just Googling how to treat smallpox. Just getting ready for the next round.
The things you do in your spare time. I mean, who says Daniel Horowitz does not have hobbies, right? I want to get to like the last 3 things you've written for the Blaze, but I've got to bring this up because this is breaking news. A federal judge in Florida has ruled against one of the larger healthcare systems in that state's attempt to impose a vaccine mandate on the employees. I won't go through the whole details here because I don't want to take away your time, but I was just reading to Todd and Aaron here during the break the six bullet points he listed as to why. He mentioned there are effective early treatments like monoclonal antibodies, and Ivermectin is mentioned specifically in the court finding. He talks about the lack of safety for the vaccines. He talks about how the current fatality rate is 0.5%, and it's even lower for those that don't have serious health issues. He also goes into natural immunity. And then he says the policy that the hospitals want to enact on their employees, the vaccines don't even fulfill that. They don't stop you from getting COVID or from spreading COVID. So I basically don't even see the point of this policy because it won't even actually do what it states it's trying to accomplish. So your view on that, on the heels of what we saw from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals on Friday, Daniel?
Well, the difference between a sane judge and an insane judge, but the problem is the former category only has about 1% of the judges involved in that way of thinking. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking it over now, and this is what we've been lacking, not just since the vaccine mandate, Steve, but since the masks and the lockdowns from last March. At some point, fact-finding has to factor in to court cases. You can't be just like they could assert anything they want, and often they'll give deference to the state when the point is in contention. But when you see it in their own mind, they're saying you have to get another shot because the shot's not working. When you see, you mentioned hospitals. Do you know a big part of why there's such a high death rate is because they don't work with them. They don't work with the patients. They were too scared of getting the virus themselves. Mind you, in the ICU, they're already past the viral replication stage. They're not even contagious. But they were too scared. Well, you have a shot. You have the shot. This was the whole purpose. You kicked out all the doctors that don't. Why aren't you working with those patients? Okay? Getting them the respiratory therapist, the breathing treatments, getting them up and moving rather than having them lie down and dying, choking on their own lungs. So the point is, he's finally recognizing the point that, Steve, this is not just a disagreement over fundamental rights and the role of government. It's that their stuff doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work.
It's that what they're asserting, even if there were no constitution, even if there were no God-given rights, and we were simply just having a finding of fact about medical evidence and efficacy, the central claims they're making, even regardless of those political and cultural realities, simply aren't factual. They're not accurate. They're not true.
Anyone's standard at this point, if you believe you could be a fascist, albeit follow the science, what you would do is force everyone to get a vitamin D test. There's 148 studies now with a correlation between your vitamin D level and your outcomes. And by the way, your ability to transmit as well. And you would force everyone to take one of these therapeutics, whether it's Fluvox or Ivermectin, nitazoxanide. I mean, all the data behind that. And you would go with the monoclonal antibodies. I mean, Steve, you could be closer to the historic definition of a vaccine, calling the monoclonal antibodies a vaccine. A trial is out that says that it works preemptively up to 8 months. Now, this thing does not work preemptively up to 8 months. It doesn't work at all for transmission. Maybe works for some people for a few months for critical illness sometimes, except for the people who need it the most, of course. Although the data that we now have from the Pfizer trials show that there's no evidence of that, and there's more all-cause mortality in the placebo group, in the trial group, the placebo group. So the point is, Steve, there is nowhere to run and nowhere to hide from this. This is not a disagreement now over rights. We all agree we don't have any rights anymore. This is a disagreement over, do you want to end the pandemic or not?
You have written 3 dynamite pieces, even by your standards, 3 dynamite pieces in a row here at The Blaze. I want to go through these individually to highlight them and urge our audience to go and read them in full on their own. Let's start with remdesivir, all right? The drug that doesn't work, and that's when you're lucky if it doesn't cause some form of renal failure. That's the drug that last July, the University of Iowa attempted to impose into its COVID treatment protocols, and what it actually found is it prolonged hospital stays of those that were given the drug. You believe this might be, which is saying something, the biggest scam of the entire scamdemic. Why?
It's one-dimensional. The vaccines are very complicated, so it's a tough issue to go through. This is straight up one drug, one mechanism of action. So number one, efficacy side. It's antiviral. It's not anti-inflammatory. So it cannot work at the hospital stage. There's no way it can work. There's nothing about it that would work. If it did work, it could only work early on. That's number one. The safety. It is straight up on the website of the NIH. And I want your listeners to Google NIH and Table 2E characteristics of antiviral agents. And you will see they compare straight up there 3 antiviral agents: remdesivir, ivermectin, and nitazoxanide. By the way, the 2 latter ones you can get at 7cells.com. Promo code DACE. But you go to the adverse events. ALT and AST elevation. That means liver damage. That's what people that are alcoholics have that. The drug has been associated with renal and liver toxicity. And they say there's a risk for moderate or severe renal impairment. Then you go to ivermectin and isoxanide, and it says it's generally well tolerated. They talk about what you monitor for, and you have to monitor all sorts of things. Renal function and hepatic function should be monitored. Obviously, we don't recommend this dose. Look at their ALT levels. You go to ivermectin and isoxanide, monitor for potential adverse events. Generic, just like anything else. This is straight up there, Steve. 5 months before Fauci made it the standard of care at $3,000 a pop, to the exclusion of every other drug, and with a 20% bonus for hospitals. 5 months before, this is in the New England Journal of Medicine. It is straight there, December 2019. They did a clinical trial of 4 different drugs or monoclonal antibodies for Ebola. And here's the deal, Steve. So we're told that you can't use repurposed drugs, right? It has to be created special for this. Did you know remdesivir was taken out of the trash from Ebola? It was so bad and was killing so many people that they had to stop the trial. They had to take that, and there was another drug out, but this did worse. 53% death rate. Now, the death rate from Ebola runs from 30 to 40%. In this trial group, it killed 53%. Incidentally, Regeneron did the best out of the 4. And yet they didn't use Regeneron until much later, and still don't promote it and make it available.
That's
to everyone.
The monoclonal antibodies, or a brand of
monoclonal antibodies.
Yeah.
One of the 2 main ones that the other one's GSK that's used today. Steve, this is out in the open. It causes liver and kidney failure, and it doesn't work. Doesn't work. There's not a single doctor who will tell you it has saved anyone. And that is the stand. So the same doctors that are covering feeding tubes right now, so that the spouses don't put in ivermectin, which is Nobel Prize winning drug, well tolerated according to NIH. It's straight up there. They are forcing people to take remdesivir. If people don't, that in itself shows you it's not even greed. It's not even control. It is genocide, and I stand behind that term because there is no way you could miss that. Hey, this killed so many people for Ebola. Let's use this as standard of care. That's what Fauci did. It's not like, hey, we misread the data. We thought it worked, but it kind of bombed out. To this day, not a single hospital has gotten off of it. When the WHO recommends against using it, it's a dangerous drug. Now, I want you to copy and paste my thought process into the vaccine. Do you trust it?
2 more things I want to ask Daniel about right after I tell you about realestateagentsitrust.com. If you want to take advantage of record low still interest rates and inflated home prices, maybe you're thinking, you know what, man, I'm just sitting on too much cash. I'm going to sell this house and find another place to live. Or maybe because we live in unprecedented times,
Bing,
you want to get the hell out of a COVID state or area and move to a place where you might have a chance at least at a little bit of freedom. Make sure you get an agent that you can trust, and the name says it all of where to look. Head to the website, realestateagentsitrust.com, and a company started by Glenn Beck and his associates because they ran into real estate agents they learned the hard way they couldn't trust. They didn't want that to happen to you. So we can hook you up with somebody with a fully vetted track record of success and that you can trust just about anywhere in America when you head to the website, realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, let's get back to Daniel here. Let's talk about Sweden. We got about 4 minutes. So I've been telling the audience all summer long, well, once Delta demonstrated the clear waning efficacy of these vaccines, okay, so August, September. So the last couple of months, I told my audience to watch Sweden. Sweden would be the control group because they've undergone one of the most aggressive vaccination programs in the world since August. And that would tell us, are the vaccines just a garbage product, or was the methodology flawed? Because Sweden did not vaccinate into a pandemic like every other country has. They isolated the vulnerable. They practiced a traditional form of a herd immunity strategy. And then after building up large reservoirs of natural immunity, they then began vaccinating. Well, we are now heading into Sweden's seasonality, okay? What are we learning? Is Sweden telling us that the vaccines are just a bad product, or the rest of the world, by vaccinating without natural immunity reservoirs, just did it wrong?
So, Steve, again, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Everywhere where they have universal adults vaccinated, I have the top 10 places that show this, but there's more than that. It's backfired. It's been worse than ever. I mean, it's straight up. Gibraltar, Singapore, you can't deny this. Austria, all of Central Europe. Now, what they say is somehow, no, there was always a predestined Delta, which it's funny that they renamed from geographical distinction to, a progression of the Greek alphabet right at the time when this was starting. It was always going to happen, and it's even worse than the first virus, even though typically they mutate down. But somehow it would have been even worse had we not had this much vaccination. So here's the problem. Sweden is the only country in the entire Europe that has not gotten a Delta wave. When I say wave, there might have been an area, a slight incline, but a wave when most countries are on their second Delta wave. Okay, that's a very important point. Even Norway and Iceland, which did phenomenal until now, and almost seemed half immune, Iceland is on its second wave that's bigger than anything pre-vaccination. The only difference that could be is that Sweden got in natural immunity because of their other policies before the viral immune escape was created by this vaccine. So yes, now they're up to high levels, although lower than most of the other countries I mentioned, a little bit lower. But it was a very late take-up. So May, June, when Delta was starting in Europe, they had a very low vaccination rate. They should have been extremely vulnerable, and they never got a wave, even when Iceland and Norway did get a wave. That tells me that they are not going to suffer the backlash of this viral immune escape because they got in natural immunity before this happened. And it also demonstrates that what's going on is viral immune escape and not, oh, Delta was just destined to behave like this.
This is part of the conversation you, me, and Dr. Ryan Cole will have tonight on Blaze TV after Glenn Beck's 2-hour special that you do not want to miss. Then they'll toss it to us as we try to answer as many follow-up questions as possible that big tech doesn't even want to let you ask, let alone get answers to. That's coming up tonight, blazetv.com/Deace, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern. 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. Do not miss it. Trust me. Get a subscription today at blazetv.com/Deace. The third piece, we're out of time. I would just urge folks to go and find it. Daniel runs down a list of nations that disprove pretty much all of the propaganda we're being sold on COVID and treatment and vaccination right now. Always great work, my friend. Thank you very much. Look forward to tonight. All right. Take care.
See you later.
You bet. All right. Any final thoughts? Todd and Aaron got about a minute before we have to check out.
Pray that the wisdom that David and Steve espouse and that Glenn is taking up tonight, pray that people are given ears to hear and eyes to see. It is a possibly huge swing moment for the good, the true, and the beautiful tonight. So thank you for what you're doing on a larger scale than even what we normally do.
That federal judge in Florida didn't kill himself. That's all I have to say.
Nice. It's quite the ruling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what would it look like if Steve Deace were a federal judge? Well, it would look a lot like this ruling, as a matter of fact. All right, we've got overtime to do for Blaze TV subscribers. Todd and Aaron are going to get surprised by the topic, as will you if you watch later today at blazetv.com/Deace. For the rest of you, we will see you hopefully tonight or tomorrow. Until then, John 3:17.